Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, awesome. All right. I'm gonna get started, okay? You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. What's up, everyone? It is 9 o'clock, or I should say 9:01 Eastern Standard Time. This is the Talking About Life podcast. I am your host, Kowski. Welcome to the show. Kowski_ETH on Twitter. If you're trying to look me up and not listening to this on Twitter Spaces, where we host a show when it's live. Today we have a guest, and that guest is Jelly. That is at Peanut Butter and on Twitter, and that is Peanut Butter PEENUTBUTTERAND. Quick bio here: Hyphy Hippie, self-growth enthusiast, healing myself to help heal the world around me, transformational nutritional coach, and the Instagram is also Peanut Butter and spelt the same way. Jelly, what's going on? How are you doing tonight?
What's up, Kowski? I'm doing good. I just got home from yoga, ate some dinner, so I'm feeling pretty good. How are you?
Good, good. Doing pretty well tonight. I had the other two people cancel on me tonight, so I'm very happy that you came
Oh
through.
no.
Yeah. I mean it is what it is, right? Life happens.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah,
Gotta
for
roll with it.
sure.
Yes, there was a little bit of an oh no in me as well. It's like okay, I was thinking like, all right, marathon podcast tonight, 3 hours. And I'm like, okay, no podcast tonight, but thank the
Hope-
universe. You came through. You're here. I'm
yeah,
very happy to see you. So, as I
thank
always let
you.
everyone know, the podcast is about, exemplifying your passions and just highlighting your passions, putting a megaphone to it, positivity and passions. So, why don't you kick it off? Why don't you let people know, who you are? I gave you a quick bio. Why don't you let people know whatever, kind of bio you want to give them and introduce us?
Sure. I always feel so weird when people ask me this because I'm like, I think like the typical answer is like, what do you do, right? But like, that's not what I think of when I think of like who I am.
Go deep.
Yeah. But I guess since it's all about like passion and what you're passionate about, so I am. The reason Hyphy Hippie is in my name is because I feel like there's like two parts of me, right? And like there's like a hyphy part of me, which I don't know if anybody, I don't know if you're familiar with like the Bay Area and like the hyphy movement and all that
So
stuff.
I'm not sure. I know back when I was in like I don't know middle school, high school, maybe even early college, there was this movement called like getting hyphy, which was similar to like getting crunk, which was
Yeah.
getting like high and drunk and fucked up on like lots of drugs at the same time. Is that the hyphy you're referring to? Is it similar? Is it different?
I think you're probably referring to the same thing, but I think so. I grew up in the Bay Area, which is in Northern California, and that's kind of where like the hyphy movement originated. So I don't necessarily see it as like only like it getting fucked up and stuff. Like, yes, people did, but I also see it as like, so like the streets of like Oakland would be like, lit up with like people in the streets doing like car shows or like at functions, people would be quote unquote like going dumb or I don't know. It was just like this whole experience to where like, yeah, you were a little bit like young, dumb, and reckless, but it was also like very community driven. And I feel like it brought people together. So I feel
Yeah.
like
So
there's like
with or without the drugs, you're high energy, you're hyphy, you're fucking getting lit, you're having a great time. I get it.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think sometimes people have a negative connotation to it too, to where like hyphy is like, oh, you're like being a little too much, right? So I feel like when I went to college, that's kind of like what people. So I went to college in SoCal. And so people always would be like, when they heard I was from the Bay, they'd be like, "Oh, so do you like go dumb and go stride the whip? Like, oh, you get hyphy and stuff like that, right?" And I'd always be like, "Oh, that's such a weird connotation." And I used to like not like it. But then throughout like my growth journey, I kind of just learned to like embrace it and be like, yeah, like I do get hyphy sometimes and like that's okay, like it's cool. And then I
If you can eat them, join them.
yeah, exactly. And then so like the hippie part is like, hippies are more like woo woo spiritual, just like love life and like, carefree and stuff like that. And I think that's like both parts of me. Like, yeah, I could be like super high energy and be, you know, potentially doing drugs. Like that's I guess that's one of my passions is like I do really enjoy like psychedelics and weed for like spiritual growth. And
Cheers.
yeah. Um, but I lost my train of thought. But yeah, basically, so like that's the Hiefy Hippie is like there's two sides of all of us, and like I truly believe that like everyone is everything, like everything is everything. Like we can all be what we want to be, like whether that's good or bad, and we all have a choice, right? So that's kind of where like the Hiefy Hippie comes in from because I feel like that just embodies me, who I am, like where I came from, my
I
growth and
I
stuff.
like the Hyphy Hippie. Um,
Thanks.
Not in my Twitter bio at the moment. I don't know if I've ever had it there, but I've from time to time referred to myself as a spiritual gangster. So
Ooh,
I get it. I think spiritual gangster and Hyphy Hippie kind of have like a
we got to
similar
do like a
connotation.
collab. Yeah, I like that.
I'm totally with it. So the Hyphy Hippie, but why don't you tell us like what is the Hyphy Hippie all about?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess me, what I'm passionate about is just like overall wellness and like living authentically as yourself. I think I spent a lot of my life people pleasing, and I still do sometimes. I'm like working, I think we're constantly on a journey of like growing and bettering ourselves. But I just have like a passion for like healing and learning and growing and like becoming our best selves. And trying to like inspire others to do that, not by being like, hey, you should do this, but just by like living authentically in me. Because I think when you show up authentically as yourself, it inspires like the next person to be like, oh shit, like that person's totally just being them and not giving a fuck. And so like I could do that too, right? And it might not be so easy right away, but the more that you see other people doing it, I feel like the easier it makes it for you to do it versus trying to sit there and like change somebody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree 100%. One of my role models in life is Jim Carrey, and I don't know how much you know about him, but he's all about that. Like part of the
Mm.
reason philosophically that he's so fucking weird in movies and on TV and shit,
Uh-huh.
to like inspire and encourage you to know that like, bro, I'm being fucking weird and look, I'm fine. Actually, I'm a fucking millionaire, so you could be weird too if you want. It's fine. It's okay. Actually do it. It's
Wow.
encouraged.
I love that. No, I did not know that about him. That's really cool.
Oh, he's great. Jim Carrey, if you don't know him as like a person, you just know him as an actor. Yeah, look at his philosophy, maybe some interviews. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah, no, no, I definitely know who he is, and I've seen like movies that he's in. But so that's the other thing about me. I'm trying to get into like knowing people more because I see the importance of it. But for like a long time, I would be like, why do I need to know about other people? Like, they're especially people like I'm not going to know. But now I've been more like, oh, it is important to like see other people and like how they became who they are, why they are, how they are, and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely know who he is, but I'll definitely look up some interviews because yeah, I really enjoy seeing others just like living authentically as them, whatever that means to them.
Yeah, he's like a deeply spiritual person. So let me ask you this. Sometimes I don't get halfway to the end before I remember to ask you.
Okay.
Shelly is your name here. Do you have a government name, a real undocs name? And if you don't, that's fine. But do you?
Yes, yes, I do. So it's Angelica, but I mean, honestly, as long as I can remember, nobody's really ever called me that. Like, all of my family calls me Jelly. I feel like the only time I was ever really called Angelica was if I was like getting in trouble or like, roll call in class or something like that. But
And then it's like that and probably your middle name from your parents, right?
yep, exactly.
Angelica, whatever your middle name is, get your ass on
Angelica
here.
Nicole, get down here. Yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah, it's funny.
what's your
So
name? Is it just Kowski? Is that your last name? Is that your
yeah, my Kowski. Kowski is actually a segment of my last name, which is Lepkowski, Lepkowsky. And my first
mm.
name is
Oh wait, you like muted a bit. Your first name is what?
Oh, sorry. My first name is Ian. Ian.
Oh, Ian. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So why don't you let me know, Angelica here, giving me instant flashbacks from the Rugrats. I apologize.
Okay, that's the other reason why I didn't like it. Like when I was growing up, Rugrats were a big
That's why.
thing, and
I'm sorry.
literally little kids would be like, "Oh, your name's Angelica. Like, you're mean, huh?" And I'd be like, "No, guys, I swear I'm not mean." But they'd be like, "No, you're mean."
Yeah, that kids could be mean. Anything they could latch on to, they will.
That's for
But yeah,
sure.
but I wanted to ask you, so passions wise, career wise, profession wise, what do you do? What are you into?
Yeah. So right now, I am currently a student. I passed my certification for transformational nutrition health coach, like you saw. But I'm finishing like they give you like a specialty course, two specialty courses that you get to pick to like kind of zero in on a specific topic. So I chose diabetes and digestive health. So I'm finishing up my last course of that. previously I was in finance and had like a financial planning practice, but I figured that wasn't my thing. So I got married last year, and so I've just been helping my husband with his business and then doing school. And then now that I'm coming up to the end of school, I'm just kind of trying to figure out like what's next? What do I want to, do with my certification and how do I want to move forward?
Yeah. So what would you say it is that you're most passionate about right now? Like, is it your business? Is it like you've kind of exhausted your passions? You're looking forward to the next thing to inspire a new passion?
Mm.
Is it just like personal growth? Is it healing? What is it right now?
Yeah, I would say right now it's kind of a combination of things, but then also just one thing at the same time. So, like, to me, health embodies like your mind, your spirit, your body, like physical health, as well as like mental health, like all of those things. So, I would say that's like my overall passion, and it comes out in different ways. So that could be like me doing my own self work. It could be like me sharing. I'm not like super active on Twitter. I want to get more active. Probably will when school ends, but like on Instagram, I'm like pretty active and just sharing like things that I'm learning in school, like helpful information that could help others. I really enjoy helping others, and like I feel like hearing other people's stories, um, or like ways that like we relate really fire me up as well. So I don't, I guess I don't have like a specific passion, but then I do at the same time in terms of like overall like health and wellness.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like your passion is healing,
Hmm.
positivity, and growth, right? If I could phrase it for you,
Yeah,
um,
that's a good way of putting it for sure.
how do we do that? How do we heal?
Oh man, that's a good question. Honestly, I feel like it's different for everybody, which is why I like share so much about like my own story and preach because I feel like I've done so many different things to try to figure out like what is the best way, right? Like I know some people really benefit from therapy, but I know some people like hate it. I personally, since I can really only speak on my own experience, I did everything and anything, honestly. Like my healing journey started with podcasts. Like I wasn't really making much of the time when I realized like, oh fuck, like I think maybe this has to do with me. Like maybe I'm the like being a victim in my own life and like maybe I do have more control. And like,
When you say podcast, that's listening to them or hosting?
oh no, I wish I had the courage to host a podcast back then. No, 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 no. Just listening to them. So I would listen to podcasts like,
Recommend?
yeah. So I would say there's like a core four that I listened to at the beginning. So one is called Earn Your Happy by Lori Harder. Another one is called Making It Happen by Henry Amar. And then there's two other ones. The motherfucking CEO project, but I think he changed it to, I think it's called Real as Fuck now, by Andy Frisella. And then I think Ed Milet Show is just called the Ed Milet Show. But those four people helped me a lot because through my self growth journey, like I would say, like within that same year, I also transitioned into the financial planning practice business that I mentioned. And that honestly is where I did a bunch of growing because like that industry has like no room for you to be like in your head. Like it's very like, all right, like the business doesn't have emotions. Like you just got to do what you got to do type of thing. Um, so yeah, I started off with like listening to podcasts and then from there, I heard like tools and things that they would mention, right? Whether that was like journaling or like reading certain books. So I did a bunch of that. I also got into like witchy things in terms of like having different like ceremonies to like surrender certain emotions or like burning things to like get rid
Witchy
of
things
things.
you said?
Yeah, like witchy
Oh, I
things.
thought you were a hippie, not a witch. Tell me more about this being a witch. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not super, super into it, like a complete bruja or nothing, but one thing that I remember is doing like a surrendering like meditation, which I guess is not necessarily witchy,
Wait, wait,
but
wait. Roll it back. First off, you're doing meditations as a witch. How did you end up being a witch? You're saying that like everybody's just like, it's something people go through. Like, oh, yeah,
uh,
I'm gonna go like hit a few balls at the driving range or get some food after work or
that's
be
a
a witch.
good
Like, no,
question.
not everyone knows how to be. How did you get into that?
That's a really good question. I think it was one of my friends, like one of my really, really, like one of my best friends. I think she introduced me to it because I remember like there was a New Year's that came around and she was like, "Hey, do you want to make these like New Year's sachets?" And I was like, "What is that?" And she had like sent me some page that she had found on Instagram from like, with a head witch, I guess you could call them, who was like trying to share their knowledge on Instagram. And basically what it was
So,
is like,
was a witch?
what'd you say?
She was a witch?
I mean, yeah. I,
Was she a witch?
Yeah, I would assume so.
Okay.
Or okay, like a spiritual guru. I don't know, whatever you want to call them. I just say witchy things to like the crystals, to the sage burning, if you do
Okay, but another
rituals and
witch
stuff
brought
like
you
that.
in to the coven.
Essentially, yes, to our small little coven.
That, okay,
And
go
she
on.
showed me the ways. Um, do you want to know more
Are
about
there
the witchy
wait,
things?
yeah,
Yeah.
actually I want to know everything. Are there any like witch secrets that I should know? Like do I want in? Like is it work? Like
I
yeah, tell me.
mean, you could. I mean, it's up to you. I feel like anybody can be a witch if you wanted to be, because it's really just about like the same way as like manifestations or meditations and stuff work. I feel like it's more so like if you believe in it, you know?
So I could be a willful wizard in real life, huh?
What? Of course. You'll be looking like your little your NFT. I think that's your NFT. Yeah, because you have the
Okay,
hexagon.
I'm the wizard.
Yeah.
Now, tell me what I'm not a I'm a PFP. My profile picture is a wizard. Um, I'm in real life. I'm not a wizard. Not like conventionally speaking. Not by any organizations.
Mhm.
Tell me about like what's being a witch all about.
Oh man. Okay. Like I said, I'm not like a professional witch or anything like that. But I actually, so I bought a book after I got like more intrigued, right? So I bought a book and it was called The Modern Guide to Witchcraft. And I was just like reading through that. Um, I don't know. I feel like to be a witch, you just learn about like different properties of things. So like different properties that like crystals hold or different energies that they hold, like different herbs that have different types of healing properties.
Are you casting like hexes out there, or is it only positive? You know
No,
what's
no, 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 no. Definitely all just positive stuff. Nothing. We're
okay?
not. We're
What's your
not. We're not putting curses on nobody or nothing.
what what have you like? What do you have practices that you do every day, or like what have you done with it so far?
I wouldn't say every day. I think the thing that I do most often is something called smudging, which maybe you've seen is just like burning sage to like clear a like negative or stagnant energy. Have you heard of that?
That I've seen before.
Okay, yeah. So that's like what I would consider like a witchy thing. So would you consider that a witchy thing? Like when you saw it?
I don't look. You're the expert. You're
I'm just
asking me.
asking
I
though.
have
I feel
no
like
idea.
you're like super
I would
amazed
have.
by it, and I'm like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I understand that not everybody knows about it.
It's intriguing.
Mm.
I would have considered it like a Native American
Mm.
medicine man kind of thing, like the smudging
Like a
and the sage.
shaman, I could see that. Hmm.
Yeah, like that's where I was introduced to it. I think is I was at like a medicine wheel thing in Wyoming, or not thing. I was at this place called Medicine Wheel in Wyoming. It's like on the top of a mountain. It's like a Native American spiritual place, and I was there with a Native American gentleman. He was teaching me about smudging and other concepts. So
Mm.
that's my connotation for it. But I mean, it makes sense that it kind of goes across into witchcraft also because it's if it has spiritual properties, then it it would everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And then that's the thing that I'm saying too is like I don't see it as like I feel like sometimes people hear witch and they're like, "Oh, like that's scary," or like, "Oh, what does that mean?" But like I just see it as like a form of like practice, just like anybody would practice like meditating or um I'm trying to think, even journaling or something like that, or even like a
Well,
religion in a
I
way.
think people don't know what it is. Like, I think, that's what I was saying before, like meditating, journal. Like, there's hobbies that people have kind of predefined notions of.
Mm.
I myself, I'm into this stuff. So I have an idea of what witchcraft is. I don't meet a lot of witches, so that's why it's intriguing to me. Like practicing ones, it's something I hear about on the internet, but I think most people don't even have the understanding that I do, that witchcraft is perhaps similar to a philosophy or like Buddhism or like a religion. And maybe it's not so much as like casting hexes and like
Yeah.
love potions as it is like a meditative and getting in touch with the environment and the earth and herbs and crystals kind of deal, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure it looks different for everybody too, right? Like I'm pretty sure there probably are some witches out there that are casting, bad things out there. What did you say? Like casting hexes or whatever?
Excellent.
Yeah. But like, no, that's not how I see it. For me, it's just more so another way of putting your intention out there. So like some people like to write their intentions, right? Or some people like to meditate on their intentions. For me, for certain things, I like to do like a ritual for an intention, right? So like one thing that I do probably more often than any other quote unquote spell. Like I like to call it a spell, is like a prosperity spell, right? Like just to bring in like abundance and whatnot. And that just involves like making a little sachet, like I mentioned, and like in that sachet you put like different types of herbs with different types of like crystal, and then you do like a little spell and you like rub some oil on it and you say the spell like 3 times, and then you kind of just like let it be there, and then it's supposed to like help with abundance. So I think it's just like another way of like using elements of the earth or different elements that we know hold spiritual properties to magnetize whatever intention it is that you want to put out there, if that makes sense.
Now, it makes sense to me. Like I said, I'm it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is my background. I'm a spiritual dude. I'm into aliens and fucking psychics and shot
Ooh.
weird shit. Yeah, that's kind of my jam.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but people are a mixed bag, right? And I find most people are not on the vein that, I'm on, or maybe you and I are on,
Mm.
right? Do you ever come across, or do you have people in your circle still, or maybe friends or family? Like, do people come at you like at your throat for this? Like, what are you, a fuck?
I have
And
a
don't think like I'm saying that. I'm with you.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
this is
No,
when
you're
people
good.
say that, right? So I'm asking, like, do people say this to you?
I honestly don't know if very many people know that I do like little like rituals and spells and things, because I'm not like just blasting it everywhere. Like I will like smudge and stuff, but I feel like that's more like widely accepted. But I will say funny story. So when I was reading the Modern Guide to Witchcraft book, I had to take a trip. I forget where I was going. I think I was going home or something. But anyways, I was sitting in like the center seat on the plane, and the man next to me, he was like terrified of planes, first of all. So I'm like trying to like help him and calm him down and like talk him through it and stuff. And like we're just talking, trying to keep his mind off of the plane and stuff. And then he like looks down and he sees my book and he's like, witchcraft. Like, and he's like, what is that? Like, why are you reading that? Like, what? And so we had to have like a whole conversation about it and stuff.
Was
And
it like a priest?
no, he was just your average guy. I don't know. He was just, I think witchcraft has like a negative connotation because of like the history and when like witches got burned and stuff like that, and people were like really afraid because supposedly they were like, doing weird things and causing, I don't know, bad stuff with their spells and whatnot. Um, but no, I don't.
How'd
I
the
think,
conversation?
what'd you say?
How'd the conversation go with this onlooker, with this
It actually went pretty well. He was like, he wasn't super opposed to it. I think he was just not aware of like the good side of witchcraft and how it could be a positive thing. So like, I don't remember the books. I read it like a while ago, so I don't remember exactly what it said. But I do remember I like read him like a page or two from it, and he was like, okay, like I could see. And he supposedly, I've never kept in contact with him, but supposedly he was going to read the book. He said he was going to read it to like open his mind up to it. So I think the conversation went well since he agreed to that.
nice. Sounds like maybe you sold him a little bit.
Yeah. But witchcraft honestly is not like my complete passion. I feel like it's just one of the tools that I use, because you were asking me like, how does a person heal, right? So
Of
I
course.
personally don't feel like an expert on witchcraft, which is why I'm like trying to like fight to find my words here and there. Um, so if it's okay with you, we'll move on to what other things I did.
100% okay with me. Yeah, what else are you out? What else helps you heal?
Okay, so I eventually went to therapy, which therapy helped me a lot. Like, I think I got really lucky with my therapist because I've heard horror stories before, or like I've heard stories of where people have to go through like 3 therapists before they find a good one. My therapist, I swear, like helped me like unlock parts of my brains, and like it felt like every session that I went to her, I would come out of it and be like, oh, like I just leveled up in life because like I reached this new part of my brain that I didn't know existed. So therapy helped me like a lot, a lot. And then when I was working with my financial planning practice, they also gave us like a lot of like coaching as well as like calls with like I had like a business coach at one point. I even hired a life coach at one point. I just did a lot, like everything and anything. Oh,
How'd the life coach thing go? I'm always curious about that.
ah, well, it got me to quit my job. So I
And
think
was that was that a positive or negative?
I think it was positive. Like my life has been great since then.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I was like not. I was really good at like what I did. I just didn't find passion behind it, right? Like I didn't feel passionate about it, and that was
That was the finance career, right? Not being like a nutritionist.
correct. Yeah. So yeah, the life coaching thing went pretty well. Um, Kind of to touch on the witchy thing, which it could be correlated to witch, but they don't consider themselves witch. But like I had joined this group, like one of my friends started like a full moon little like group to get together and just like set intentions and stuff like that, which helped me to be more defined on like what I wanted, I guess you could say. Um, I read a lot of it. So there's also something called, which I'm also not an expert on, but there's something called like embodiment. And I took this workshop, which is embodiment courses are kind of like a movement meditation. So you're like, the instructor like has music on and like has a purpose or a theme for like the session, but you are pretty much just like in your room or wherever, and you close your eyes and you're just like trusting your body to move you in whatever ways that the instructor is like directing you to move in. And it's really interesting. Like it took me a few sessions to like really tap in, but like it's crazy how like your body stores like memories within it, and like just different movements can like help heal parts of you, or like bring back certain memories or help you like process certain things. So that was really interesting. um, I mentioned
Anything specific, like powerful that came from that for you that you'd like to share?
I won't go too far into depth, but there is like some sexual trauma that I had in my past that I've never talked about in therapy. Like I would always bring it up, but I never wanted to go there. And I feel like doing that like mindful meditation movement, or whatever you want to call it, the embodiment that I'm talking about, um, helped like heal parts of that, which was really cool. So yeah.
That's really good. I mean, I would say I would encourage you to, find a place to open up or talk about it, you know, probably if you want to here, then welcome, but probably not here based on your reaction. But yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't even in therapy, but I would encourage you to do that, or maybe find a place or a person you could do that with. Obviously, I don't want to push you, but I think getting to a point where you can open up about anything that you kind of are hurt or wounded about. If you're enthusiastic about healing, like you said, I think
Mm-hmm.
eventually opening up about everything, to someone or in some way is part of that healing process.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. And it's funny because this is a conversation that I was actually having with my therapist recently. So we're like inching there. We're like on our way. It's just
Gotcha.
not fully. That's like the one thing I'm like, everything else I'll talk about. That's the one thing that I'm just like, I've never really talked about it. So let me just like
Well,
warm up to
they
it.
uh they say the treasure that's the greatest lies in the cave with the fiercest dragon that you most fear to enter. So
Mm.
perhaps after you broach that conversation, that'll be the most rewarding healing. Maybe.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I mean, I've had the conversation with other people in my life before, just never like for a quote unquote like healing, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Um, but aside with that too, I think another part that helped heal that, but then also other parts of me.
And by the way, I don't know what that is, but I'm really sorry that you had, whatever experience that is or any negative experience, I'm sorry you had to deal with that.
Oh, thanks, Kowski. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Um, but yeah, so psychedelics helped me a lot too, honestly. And I'm not like a complete advocate because I know they can have like bad trips and stuff like that. So I don't want people to just go do it without like having, some research
What kind of
behind it.
psychedelic
Shrooms and acid have been very helpful for me. I've made like,
have you done those a lot?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you consider a lot.
I guess how many times have you done those?
Oh man, shrooms, I would say more than 10 times. Acid, I've done maybe 5 times.
In
Um,
what period of time? Like over the past 5 years, 5 months, 5 minutes?
Good question.
What kind of time?
5 minutes. I think my first shroom trip, because I started with shrooms first, was probably in like maybe like 2016 or 17. So maybe
Oh,
like
and you
five
don't
or
have to
six
answer,
years.
but can I ask you how old you are?
Yeah, you're good. I'm 30. Oh my God, I
Okay, cool.
almost said like 28 or something like that. But yeah,
I'm
I just had a
30.
birthday. I'm 30.
No, happy birthday. But yeah, go ahead. So 2016, you said your first room trip?
Somewhere around there. I'm not for sure like the exact date, but yeah, it was like somewhere in the time span of like 2016 to
Don't worry,
2018,
I'm
I'd
not the
say.
same.
Yeah, don't fact check me.
So
Um,
I was
really great. I honestly, my first room experience was, it's so funny because I tell people and I'm like, I honestly felt like I was gonna die, but it was like the best experience ever. Like I don't know how to explain it, but it was, like my body felt like I was like dying, but like internally, like my mind and the things that were happening, it was like great. So like I don't know. Ever since then, I was just like I feel like at the beginning I did it more so as like a recreational thing because I didn't really know what I was doing exactly. But then the more like research I did and the more resources I had, I was like, oh, these things are like very powerful and they can help with certain things. I eventually had bought this actual it's like a course. I can't think of the organization right now. I wish I could, but there's like a course that they have because they want to promote like using these things, as like our ancestors intended for them to be. So they have this whole like workshop of like how you're supposed to prepare for them and like how you're supposed to like take them and like a whole playlist while you're on your journey and stuff like that. And that was really cool. Um,
That's it. If you figure that out later, message me that or I'll post it or something. That sounds super interesting. Like a
yeah,
course
yeah,
for
yeah. No, for
that
sure. I will send it to you. I have it in my computer, so I'll look for it and I'll send it to you for sure. But yeah, really cool. Like the playlist was even like perfect, like for every part of the trip. Like even the intense part, like when it like peaked, was like the music was like peaking too, and like I don't know, it was great. Um, but yeah, so after I did shrooms a few times, I actually only started doing acid. When did I start that? Maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Um, and yeah, acid actually has like changed my life a lot. I mean, shrooms too, but I've made a lot of really big life decisions on acid. Like even when I was contemplating leaving my job, like how I mentioned with the life coach, it was like part her because she helped me, get to that point. But then it was also part like I did acid in the woods and like I just like sat there and meditated and was like thinking about like the two ways that my life could go, either me staying or me going. And like it's just so crazy. I feel like, well, have you done acid before or shrooms or anything?
yeah, I've done both.
Okay, cool. So I'm sure you could probably resonate with this in terms of like you it's like your ego and like all of the thoughts that you have normally of like self-doubt or other people and like what are people going to think or like doubting yourself and not really being able to listen to like your higher self, I would say, like all of that goes away and then you're just thinking like completely from like a place of like who you are authentically, if that makes sense. I don't know if you've experienced that.
Yeah, it's that detachment, kind of reattachment, kind of pondering it from all angles, kind of zooming out, kind of microcosm, macrocosm, kind of
Mm.
all in one, going back and forth, kaleidoscope kind of thing. If I'm thinking what you're thinking.
Yeah, for sure. And like everything's connected and like yeah. um so yeah, I've just made a lot of big life decisions off that. I
Well, what was it? I mean, so I mean, obviously you decided to leave the job, but like, was there a visualization? Was there like a moment of
mm-hmm.
crux, or like a way it played out? Or was it just kind
Yeah.
of like a regular meditation, or what was the difference? With the acid. I mean, I know you kind of just described it, but what was I guess I'm asking, was there a visual aspect?
Yeah, there was actually. So I guess the difference is like for me, typically when I like meditate or do any of these things, if I'm sober, it's really hard for me to get visuals. Like I get a lot of feelings and a lot of like thinking more. So I guess you could say like it's really hard for me to just have like those complete visuals. So maybe you're able to reach that on normal meditative state, but I'm not. Um, but yeah, so when I was on the acid, I was just like thinking, and I could clearly see like the two different roads. So like one road was like me staying there and like I knew I was going to be successful and it was like me and my business and everything that I would wanted to create and moving forward, but it felt very what's the word I'm looking for? Like very safe because I can't think of the other word I'm trying to find, but it just seemed very like I knew exactly what was going to happen if I was to choose that route because the way that the company I was under was set up was like very like they had a whole method of like if you do X, Y, and Z, this is gonna happen pretty much. And like up until then, everything happened. So I just figured like, okay, that's how it's gonna go, which seemed cool and it seemed very secure. Um, That was the word I was looking for, secure. It seemed super secure and safe. And then the other road was I leave, and I didn't really know what that looked like. And I, how long were me and my husband dating at the time? I think we had only been together for maybe a year and a half. And we were not even engaged or anything. But it was like, okay, well, I leave and I kind of depend on him for a bit while I figure things out. And like, that's scary because like, he's not committed to me at all, you know, just more than a word. Um, but it just seemed way more invigorating. And I was just like, fuck it, we're doing it. Like, I don't know where the universe is taking me, but this is what's feeling called to me. And like, it just feels more, it gives me more life not knowing than feeling like everything is so planned out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. I mean, sometimes it's freeing to go with your intuition. So
Mm-hmm.
right now you are doing like a nutritional coaching.
I'm not currently, I had people who I coached like for my course who were like people I was coaching for free. But I'm not currently coaching at the moment. But I am, yeah, I'm a certified transformational nutrition coach.
Cool. So let me ask you this. Is
Mm-hmm.
there is there like, just so I'm getting the picture, is like right now you're looking for new clients, or like is there something you're promoting, or
No, no, no,
you're
no. I'm still honestly trying to figure it out. That's why I was like, oh, I just got to figure out what's next because I thought I wanted to do
is it
coaching at
not
one.
nutritional coaching though, or
You could, I mean, you could do anything. So it's like, that's like the certificate that you get, right? But you could do anything. Like some people make courses, some people write books, some people make apps, some people have podcasts, some people become influencers. Like there's like a bunch of different things you can do because like at the end of the day, the information that you're learning is can translate to other things.
gotcha. So you're like all loaded up, but haven't quite decided how you're gonna like find your avenue or disseminate all this information you have.
Yeah, because I don't know. I honestly really enjoy my life and I feel super blessed to live the life that I live right now. So it's not like I want to have like a full on business like I had when I was running my financial planning practice because I know what that's like having like multiple clients and, you know, having to create plans for them and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to figure out like what makes sense for my current life. And I'm like really blessed to where we're in a position to where we don't really need me to make an income. So this is just all me of like, okay, this can be my real passion
Without
work.
being nosy, what is that from? Like, is that from savings? Is that from investing, like real estate or something? Like, how are you at a point where you're kind of set?
It's a combination of things. So, like working at the financial planning practice, I was able to make more money than I ever honestly dreamed, like coming from where I came from. So, I was really good with my money and saved up. But alongside that, like my husband and his business does really well. And like we live not like super minimalistic, but we live like pretty within our means. So, like month to month, like we're fine. And then we do have like our savings as well. And we've invested a little bit, but not too much right now. But yeah, we're just like, we're good. Like if I did bring in income, it'd be like for more stuff. If we wanted to like, you know, do more traveling or, you know, it's just like extras. It's not like we need it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, and congrats. I guess
Thank you.
on that notion, you could say I'm a little jelly.
Yes, that would be the appropriate word usage. It's funny because sometimes I'll say that to people being like, I'm jealous, but I'm like, no, I'm jelly. And they're just like, yeah, you are jelly. And I'm like, you're not even letting me use the word.
You're like, no, I'm the other jelly this time.
Exactly.
Now, let me ask you this. You kind of touched on it a little bit, and I know you didn't want to go into that specific thing, which I definitely don't want to like be put
Hmm.
to. But maybe a different thing. We're talking about healing. What are
Yeah.
you healing from?
Ooh, good question. Honestly, so much. So, one thing I would say is like victim mindset. Like, I think that you can heal from that and like grow from that, right? Like, I think I grew,
Wait, from what? Oh, victim mindset, you said?
yes. Like, that was one thing that I had to heal out of. Also, like, self worth. Like, I had very, very low self esteem growing up. Um, I'm like super skinny. I always have been. And I used to get called like twig or like, I don't even remember all the names, but you know, just like kids are dumb and like will say mean things sometimes. And like that really took a shot at like my self
I
esteem and
was
stuff.
So I get it. We probably had different names, but similar feeling.
Yeah. Um, so stuff like that. I also was in like really toxic, abusive relationships at different points of my life. So I had to like do a lot of work, and I'm still doing work, like healing from that, figuring out like what do healthy relationships even look like? Because even when it came to that, like I wasn't really ever surrounded by healthy relationships. Like my parents split up when I was younger. Most of my family members that I was around were also split up. The only real example I had was like my grandma and grandpa, but they even died when I was like younger as well.
How young were you when your parents split?
I think I was like 11 or 12.
Yeah, it's pretty young. I just to relate with you there. My
Yeah.
parents split up when I was 3, so yeah, I mean, I get to
Oh
that.
man.
I get the early kind of split up thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I couldn't imagine as a 3-year-old. That's like a lot to process.
I would agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry to
I'm
hear.
still processing it. Maybe no, it's fine.
No, yeah, I know. It's like a lot. Um, so yeah, that um a lot of it is just like family stuff as well. Not like anything super major, but just like I think the relationships that you have around you growing up have a lot of impact on like who you are and growing up and like realizing that like maybe some of the things that you believe in or maybe some of the ways that you act are not really you. They're things that you learned along the way or learned or thought that you should do because of certain things, right? So having to like
Any like specific examples that stand out of that?
um good question. Let me think.
Like something you were doing or a role or I mean, besides the last job. I mean, unless the last job is a good example of something you thought was you and now you decided wasn't. But I guess anything maybe earlier in life or another example.
Yeah. Well, I would say even just like the way that I dealt with things, right? Like I would get like really flustered when like things wouldn't go my way, right? Or like if I was stressed out, like I wouldn't. Oh, anger. There's like one thing, like, oh my God, my anger has gotten so much better. I used to be like a very like not angry in the sense of like just anybody could see it, but like if I'm in a relationship with you or you're around, like my attitude and my anger was like not the healthiest. So I had to definitely like
How did
learn.
that look
Um
or sound?
yeah. Well, in the like toxic relationships that I mentioned, right? It would be like me punching a wall. It would be like when I was younger, I would like cut myself and like hurt myself for like I don't know because I thought it was like
I used to do
helping.
that too, and I'm sorry you went through that.
Yeah, no, you too. Um, I think like hitting things, yelling, saying like hurtful things, right? Like things you don't actually mean, but you're just trying to like hurt people. Um, like I mentioned, cutting myself. It was mostly like I would say like those things the most. It was more like violence with words, yelling, screaming, arguing, hitting things, breaking things, like that type of stuff.
And let me ask you, like, through the therapy, through the meditation, through the witchcraft, like, where do you feel that all these emotions were coming from? Like, you mentioned, the separation of your parents. Like, is it from that? Is it from the bullying? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
it, from more of the trauma, later on? Is it a mix of all of it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a mix of all of it. And I think we're just like complex creatures where like everything affects us, whether we think it does or not, right? But I think a large part of it was family dynamics, things that I saw, things like anger that I had inside me not being able to understand, why mom and dad aren't together anymore, me hearing things from mom about like what dad did, but then that maybe not being the full story. Me feeling miss. So like at a young age, I didn't because my dad left, and then I have an older brother, and my brother's like 7 years older than me. Those were like the two male figures in my life, and like because I was so much younger, and then my dad left, so my brother didn't want to like hang out with me very much because I'm like the annoying younger sister, right? Which I get that now, but like when I was younger, I didn't get it. So I grew up thinking like they don't love me, and then growing up and people making fun of me because I'm skinny, and now oh boys don't like me because I don't have body, and like all of that stuff, right? It comes to it. So I think it came from a lot of different areas. But yeah, I think probably mainly like what I saw modeled because even like in some of the relationships that I was in early on, I wasn't always, I would say, like that angry or showed up in that way, but I think I learned those behaviors through being in relationships with people like that too.
Now, again, it's as much or as little as you want, but do you want to say anything about those kind of, abusive or traumatic relationships?
Um, I mean, I definitely think through my healing that I have learned to see why they were in my life. Like something that I've learned along my journey is just like realizing that everything that I've been through in life was for a purpose. Like I truly don't believe that I would be the person that I am today, be where I am, be with the person that I'm with, be the person that I am if I didn't go through all of those things because I think I had to learn from those things, right? Um, so nothing necessarily about the relationships themselves, but I did have to like find forgiveness and see the silver lining through them for sure.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And I would say what I've found through my own bad relationships is that you're going to keep attracting the same type of people. So
Mm.
if you're one of those people that is in that phase of your life where you go, oh, there's something fucking wrong with this person, this one's fucking crazy, maybe once, right? But probably not. It's probably you. I'm going to be honest. Like,
Mm.
no matter who you are, most of your problems are probably your own fucking fault. That's just the cold hard truth of the world, and it gets better when you
Mm-hmm.
start dealing with it, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of no different here.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's what I meant too when I mentioned the whole like victim
And
mindset.
that's not an attack at you, by the way.
No,
It's just
no, no,
it,
no.
and I'm sure you know this because you're doing the work and healing, but it's just for the listeners, like, hey, if you keep dating the same type of person,
Oh yeah, you're gonna
it's
keep
not
getting the same
all of
result.
them at that point, right? Like maybe on the first one you think it's them. Second one, okay. By this fifth, third, fourth, fifth, seventh, it's you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you play
Now
a
do the
part in
work.
it for sure. And I
Now
think
why you're attracting those people. Yeah,
yeah.
not blaming you because you've done the work, but just for
No,
the
you're
listeners.
fine. You can blame me in the past because that's exactly it, right? Like I spent so much
Not-
time in some relationships and like being like, you're the problem, or like breaking up and being like, it was them, right? And it's just like, okay, well, yeah, part of it was them, but like also part of it was like you also fed into it, like you also developed those same tendencies, like you also were, feeding into it. So yeah, no, I totally hear you. And I
Yeah.
think that's like something.
I don't think I realized until my third failing relationship that it was me. So that's why I'm so adamant. The sooner you realize, the better. It's just to help you.
Yeah, and that's not even in relationships, though. I think that's just like in life too, right? Like sometimes people play victim to things. Like I used to play victim because I was like, oh, I went to school for psychology and oh, psychology degrees like don't actually make that much money. Like, why wasn't I prepared for this? And like, fuck the world and like, oh, the system fucking sucks and like all of this shit, right? And then when I like did some more growing and some healing and learning and realized like okay, cool, but I still chose that thing. Okay, cool, I still learned from it. Okay, cool, like that was still something that interests me, but like now what? Like now I still have a choice of like what I want to do and like there's other opportunities out there. I could pivot. Like you always have a choice and you always have some control. Even if it's not, full control, you still have a choice of like how you're reacting and how you're responding to things.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is life is 90 what is it? Life is n- life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. I think that's what it is. Yeah, like
Mm,
10% what happens to you and 90% of it is how you react. So that's kind of just echoing your same point. Now I just
yeah.
draw a kind of consciousness here. We got
We
about
have 10
10
minutes,
minutes
yeah.
left. I do like to keep it to the hour. One question I was going to ask you. Now also think about anything
Wait,
you
wait,
want to
wait,
bring.
wait, wait. One thing I want to say. It's just a quote because you had a quote. Yeah,
100%.
yeah. No, is like a situation can change just by the way you think about a situation. And like that's just to say that perception is everything, right? Like literally just the way that you're perceiving something can change the whole thing. You can turn from like a victim to a survivor, like or not a survivor. What's the word I'm looking for?
Victor.
There you go. Yeah. You can be the victim or the victor, right? All by literally how you think about things. So I
Yeah,
just
when you
wanted to
change
add that.
the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Exactly. But go on with your question. We have 10
I was
minutes.
gonna ask. So yeah, so 100%. Anything that's coming to your mind, I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. Anything you wanted to bring up, promote, anything you want to talk about, shill, ask people, hey, reach out to me about this. 100%. Make sure you do that before the end of the cast here. But one thing I wanted to ask that I was curious about that I was just looking on your page,
Mm-hmm.
and also you mentioned here, you were talking about manifesting.
Mm.
Um, a lot of people are skeptical about manifesting. They think it's bullshit. Obviously, you don't. Do you want to kind of tell me here, why don't you think it's bullshit? And maybe leading from that, is there an example of a time where you feel like it actually worked?
Good question. Well, to touch on what you said, I think a lot of people might have like the wrong idea of manifestation to where I think sometimes, because I used to think this too, like I think people sometimes think that manifestation is just you putting the intention out there and letting the universe do its thing, right? Which, like, sure, that's part of it, but like, no, you have to fucking do the work too. Like, you can't just be like,
So I don't pray for $1 million on my couch and fall back asleep.
no, you have to show the universe or God or whatever it is that you believe in um, that, like, you're also deserving of it, right? And that you're welcoming it in because it's not just going to fall in your lap. Like, sure, maybe in some situations, maybe that could happen somewhere, but like
So the law of
realistically,
attraction helps those who help themselves, it seems.
yeah, no, for sure. So, like, one example is literally like I tell people all the time, like, I swear I manifested my husband. Like, he and I mean, not he, sorry, my therapist and I like talked a lot about like my toxic relationships in the past and like healing from those and like recognizing what place I had it and what am I doing to better myself and stuff like that. Right. And then she had me write like a list. She's like, well, do you even know what you want in an ideal partner? And I was like, no, but like, I'm sure I could think of it. So she's like, that's your homework. Like, you're going to go home, you're going to write down your ideal list. I couldn't tell you exactly what the list was, but basically everything that was on my list, I shit you not, within like 3 months, my husband now, ex, or like we dated in the past. I wouldn't say he was an ex, but we had been on dates before. He like had slid in my DMs and like we had restarted talking. Like I had no idea at the time that he,
3 months. Good.
I think it was like within 3 months. Like it was pretty fast.
And you might
Maybe
can you
6 months.
manifest financial freedom since you're so fucking powerful?
I'll try. I got you. I'll send you my prosperity spell. Maybe that could help you with your
Fucking
wizardly.
sold. Yeah, send it along. 3 months.
maybe,
Three
maybe
months
it
is
was
fucking
like 6, but it was for sure less than 9 months. But I feel like it would happen pretty fast. And yeah, I obviously didn't like know it at the time, but he literally like checked all if not 90% of the boxes off. And now we're married, so yeah,
I love that.
yeah. But yeah, any other questions around that?
No, one thing I would say too for the listeners, because I like to cater to all sides of things. And I was really skeptical before I got into this whole lifestyle I'm in, where I'm into meditation and yoga and psychics and all this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still like the guy inside of me that's like, bro, all that's bullshit. And I've moved past that. I no longer think that, but I know there's people that still think that. And I don't want to like lose those people because I used to be
Mm,
one of them. So what I would say to those people is keep going, keep doing the work. There's like a deeper level of this stuff where maybe you will actually realize some of it is true. But if you're not there yet, I think my fallback is always positive psychology. Like
mm,
every single part of positive, like manifestation and the law of attraction in the universe, like even if you don't believe there's a single part of it that extends past the physical, every single part of it is present on both levels. That part where
mm-hmm,
it's like special and magical where you kind of have to like believe in it, but like it's also present on that level, right? The special magical part of it, how does it connect to you? It has to come into reality somehow, right? How does it come through? Through the mind, right? Through psychology.
mm-hmm,
So there's also this aspect of it where, you wrote this list, and even if you don't believe the universe hand delivered this person to you, which again, I'm with you, I do believe in this stuff. But if you don't, the other side of it you could look at is there's this positive psychology where you said yourself, you didn't have that conscious awareness. Maybe it was subconscious. Maybe it was like completely scattered. You didn't really know what it was you were looking for. You made this list. And if nothing else, that put your own mind and your own conscious and subconscious in alignment with this is what we're looking for. So
mm-hmm,
even if you didn't know from moment to moment, right, when you're walking down the street, oh, does this one have this? Does this one have this? There's this subconscious, there's this vibes kind of aspect. There's this like kind of information that you kind of have that comes to people through like feelings and pheromones and all that shit. And now that type of part of your mind knows what it's looking for consciously. And that's also a way to kind of leverage these positive tactics. So I just want to say, no matter what you believe, the same tactics can really work for everybody because they do work. And that's the point. They
yeah.
fucking work. That's why I believe in this shit because it fucking works. It works for real.
I
So
think
that's when
that's
I
a
kind
key
of
thing
started
too. You have to
flipping
like
over to
remember.
like the belief is that it works. But yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good. Two things I want to say to that. One, I think that's like the missing component. Two is like I think sometimes you have to just blindly believe it, even if you don't fully believe it. You just have to say fuck it and have that faith because if not, I think sometimes you're blocking yourself from even being able to see and receive those messages, even if the universe is throwing it your way, right? Or the God or whatever it is that you believe in. So that's one thing that I would say there. Like, yes, it could happen even if you don't, but I think just having that like blind belief in faith, even though it sounds scary if you don't believe in it, but I think not believing it can block things from you at the same time. But then two, to tag on to what you're saying, like just think of the example of like, I'm sure you guys or listeners or maybe you Kowski have like bought a car at some point, right? And like let's say so like for me, so in college I had a Mini Cooper. And I swear I never really noticed any Mini Coopers anywhere. But as soon as I got a Mini Cooper, it was like everywhere. And that's just the same thing as like law of attraction or like when you're thinking of like gratitudes, right? And I think that's the other thing that I would encourage people maybe to start off with, if not manifesting, if not putting intentions out there, at least starting with gratitude, because that puts you to a higher frequency, right? And it just allows things to naturally gravitate towards you if you're in that higher frequency of gratitude. And there's always something to be grateful for, even if it's just the breath that's allowing you to speak right now, right? Or keeping you alive.
Right. So before you, go to the next level of kind of like bringing things into your life, maybe just start off being happy with what you already have in your life.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to highlight what you said about not believing kind of blocking the door. For me, it's this idea that always stuck out. I was a Disney movie kind of kid, and in every fucking Disney movie or a bunch of them, not everyone, but there's this fucking idea or trope about like if you don't believe in magic, then you can't even see it, right? So then
Mm.
it kind of like has this idea of like, and I read this, so that's the one idea, and then there's this article I read online. I don't even know where it was, who wrote it. Thanks to this person, but it was like challenging skeptics. I always considered myself a skeptic and proudly a skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, bro, if you're really a fucking skeptic, what if you're wrong about being a skeptic? Like, what if the things like you're
Ooh,
skeptical about, what if you're wrong about those too? Have you skepticized your own skepticism? And I was
that's
like, holy
good.
fuck. And it was like, and if you really want to skepticize your own skepticism, the way you can like confidently say you don't believe in all the things that you've ruled out is to try them. Because
Mm.
if you're really skeptical about them, you not only have to try them, but find a way to abandon your skepticism, open your mind, and try them while believing in magic. Because if you try them and you don't believe in magic, and one of the rules of magic is if you don't believe, you can't see,
Mm.
and you don't believe, then you won't see, even if you say you're trying. So you got to get so fucking skeptical that you actually reopen your mind to belief and give it a shot. And in that trial phase of me giving shit a shot of whether I really fucking thought it was real when I was like believing, I actually started to see results. That is like the unlock that converted me into, oh, okay, maybe I will fuck with this spiritual metaphysical kind of meditation type shit. But all right, we're pretty much at the end here. I guess I'll just say, we'll close it out. Do you have any like, last words, or I always ask us like a mic drop kind of moment, or last thing you out on here?
I mean, no like mic drop moment, but I do want to just encourage people to, take what they can from this episode and, you know, just have that little bit of faith if you haven't already. Or, discover something new about yourself, even if you feel like you know yourself a lot already. Because I think there's a lot of power in like getting to know yourself and cultivating a relationship with yourself because we spend so much time with other people typically and focused on other people. So I just want to put that out there. And then I know you mentioned like if I wanted to like shill anything or whatever, but no shilling, just more so like if you guys wanted to connect with me, feel free to follow me on Twitter or Instagram. I am pretty open to like DMs and love talking to people about like anything that has to deal with like healing, learning, growth. I am like a jack of all trades, a master of none. I know a lot about a lot of things and really
Still,
enjoyed talking about them.
one.
What was that?
Do you know the end of that quote? I'm so sorry to cut you off. It's like a pet peeve of mine. Do you know the end of that quote?
End of a jack of all trades, master of none. I don't. You can finish it for me.
It's jack of all trades, master of none, but still always better than a master of one. And when people say a jack of all
Oh,
trades, but master of none, it sounds like it's bad to be a master
it
of none.
does. I
But the
used to think it
quote
was.
is still always better than a master of one. So it's better to be good at multiple things than to just be good at one thing. That is the full quote. I think that's
Wow, you
hysterical.
had the mic drop here, Kowski. Wow. Okay, I love that.
Hell yeah. So we'll close out on that. Hopefully you got some healing from this episode. Don't be jelly. Reach Jelly's DMs, not in a creepy way, about healing, about life, about moving forward, about growth,
Health
maybe about some
things. Yeah,
life stuff,
anything.
anything. And last word we want to say here, it's 10 o'clock. So thanks to the listeners for coming. Jelly, thank you for being a guest on the show. And I'd like to close out with a message from our good friend Afakasi Brand, and that is you are loved. If you haven't heard it today, you are loved. Everyone's loved. I love you. The universe is full of love. You're made of the same fabric as the cosmos and the moon and the stars and the person next to you and even your cabinet. It's all part of the same energy, and you are loved. Peace out, folks.
Love that. Thank